The House narrowly approved a rules package last night amid concerns about the concessions that Kevin McCarthy made in his fight to get the Speaker's gavel. One Republican voted no as the GOP ultimately united to pass the rules changes, which make it easier to remove the House Speaker and harder to raise taxes. It also helps them establish new investigatory committees and could potentially slow ethics investigations. Also, in its first piece of legislation, as the new majority, House Republicans voted for a bill that will roll back funding for the IRS. That was part of that big social spending bill passed by Democrats last year. It's a messaging bill, though. We should note it's not going to be taken up by the Senate. Obviously, would not get President Biden's approval. Joining us now to talk about this new GOP majority is Republican Congressman Dusty Johnson, who is from South Dakota and chairs the centrist-leaning Main Street Caucus and has sat on the Agricultural, Transportation, and Infrastructure committees. Good morning, Congressman, and thank you for joining us. One big question coming out of this week has been whether or not you and your fellow Republicans have an understanding of the full scope of what was actually agreed to by Kevin McCarthy. Do you feel like you have an understanding of that?
I do. I think the contours of this thing have been very well reported. And I get it. This is human nature. If there's a piece of paper you can't see, oh my gosh, I want to see it. I just got to see it. This is nothing new. Nancy Pelosi 2 years ago had a very narrow majority. Obviously, to get the vote she needed, she was willing to have conversations with her members. Okay, hey, you really care about the environment? I'll do what I can to get this bill on the floor. That's what Kevin McCarthy has done. But remember, nothing outside of the rules package binds anybody. Kevin McCarthy doesn't have my vote card. He doesn't have anybody else's vote card. This addendum is just really him trying to tell members that he'll try to do what he can to build unity.
But why not, release as a piece of paper, as you suggested, on exactly what he did promise people when it comes to, these really critical spots on certain committees or certain promises that he made to these members?
Well, let's be clear. Kevin McCarthy has not promised any specific person, any specific spot on any committee. And I get it. I mean, in hindsight, of course, had they released this thing last week, it would have been old news by now. But at some point, this is just Kevin McCarthy being honest with individual members he's talking to about he's going to do what he can to bring their term limits bill to the floor, or he's going to do what he can to bring their balanced budget amendment to the floor. And I know everybody wants to see it because they can't see it, but it's really not any different than what other speakers have done. I mean, did we see a list of what Nancy Pelosi, every conversation she had with members as she was getting her votes? We didn't.
Yeah, of course. But just because of how remarkable this was and how much it was about the concessions that he made in order to get that gavel. But I want to follow up on what you just said. Kevin McCarthy, you say, has not promised a committee seat to any Republican.
No, that's right. I mean, ultimately, the steering committee, which is not Kevin McCarthy, he gets 4 votes out of 30 on the steering committee. They decide who gets these slots. Now, there are a few speaker-appointed positions, and it's possible in those conversations, somebody said, hey, I'd really like to be on intelligence. And maybe Kevin McCarthy said, you'd be a good fit for intelligence. But overwhelmingly, the kind of committee slots people are interested in, those decisions are made by steering and not by the speaker alone.
You say that you like the rules that were passed yesterday. I wonder if you have a concern about the U.S. being at a higher risk of defaulting on its debt, given what we've seen play out so far within your conference.
We are $33 trillion in debt. And I know people want to draw this massive distinction between the spending bills and the debt ceiling. I get it. They're different mechanisms. But clearly, the debt ceiling is tied to the national debt, which is, by the way, a clear and present threat to the future of this country. We need to have these conversations. And the idea that, oh, gosh darn it, Republicans won't budge, so we're just going to go off the fiscal cliff, I think that's a little dramatic. I think it's a little extremist. I think what we should do instead is shift the conversation so that it's a bicameral, bipartisan conversation, which is, gang, what are we going to do to try to bend these spending curves back in the direction of sanity?
I guess so you don't have concerns that the United States is at a higher risk of defaulting on its debt. Is that right?
There's nothing in the rules package that puts us in a higher likelihood of defaulting. Now, clearly, having Republicans in control of the House is going to mean that we're going to drive a harder bargain when it comes to spending and when it comes to driving the debt ceiling. But there isn't anything in that rules package that makes that a foregone conclusion or even more likely.
Do you agree that Adam Schiff, Eric Swalwell, Ilhan Omar, that those Democrats should not be on committees and should lose their seats?
I said when Nancy Pelosi did this last Congress, when she started kicking Republicans off committees, that this was going to go to a bad spot. Listen, I don't think that the Speaker should just be kicking the opposition party off of committees willy-nilly, but this is the new normal. This is what Nancy Pelosi has created. I think it is very difficult in this environment now where this is the new normal for Republicans to unilaterally disarm. This is going to have to be a tool that Kevin McCarthy uses in a very targeted and sparing way, or else we're just going to continue the escalation of weaponizing everything in this town.
So you're saying he shouldn't abuse that?
He absolutely should not abuse that.
What about your new colleague, George Santos? Does he deserve a seat on any committees?
Listen, if I was the Speaker, I wouldn't put George Santos on committees until we had a deeper and more full understanding of exactly what went on during his campaign. He should be referred to the Ethics Committee. There should be a full and complete investigation, and he should be held accountable for what he's done. The fact that he's a Republican doesn't keep me from saying he needs to be held accountable for whatever he's done wrong.
Thank you for that. And do you believe that the new Republican majority is going to look into President Biden's retention of classified documents, this revelation that we found out overnight?
Yeah, that was incredibly unfortunate. The fact that we have had now at least a couple of administrations in a row not handle classified documents well is a problem. And it is the kind of thing I think you're going to see the Republican House ask a lot of questions about. Maybe we need new procedures in place. The idea that somebody could just take a folder with classified information and walk out the door with it, that is really problematic.
James Comer, who is chairing the House Oversight Committee, raised these questions yesterday saying, does this mean that the White House should be raided? Obviously referencing what we saw happen at Mar-a-Lago. But can you acknowledge that based on what we know now, there is obviously a difference here when it comes to the volume of classified material that was taken to Mar-a-Lago and what President Biden had as vice president, and also how it was handled in the sense of actually cooperating to return those documents to the federal government?
Well, first off, I would tell you clearly anybody taking classified documents out of a secure setting is a problem. And so, yes, I mean, what the previous administration did, not good, not right. And I think that's worth calling out. I don't know enough about the difference in the volume and the difference in cooperation. I think those are questions that we've got to have a committee ask. I guess at this point, I'm not willing to take the Biden administration's word for it. Let's ask a few follow-up questions.
We will be asking follow-up questions. Congressman Dusty Johnson, thanks for sharing your time with us this morning and weighing in on all of these very important topics.
Absolutely. Thank you.
That was really interesting. I feel like you made a lot of news there, especially on, McCarthy and those committees.
Yeah, well, it's a big question of what they look like. Obviously, this is something that Republicans said. They said there will be retaliation for members being kicked off, and now we are seeing that, and we'll see. It was interesting, he said Kevin McCarthy should not abuse that, though.
That's right.
It's also interesting that they're not saying, well, the people voted for George Santos. He's saying he needs to be held accountable.
Yeah, he said he should not be on a committee until they find out more information. If he was House Speaker, of course he's not. It's up to Kevin McCarthy.